I don't know about you, but there are some, when it comes to taxation, and we're not far away from getting tax returns in and all those sorts of things, it's pretty much May, so 30 June, we'll be honest before we know it, before the accountant is asking for all your receipts and the like. I get confused a little bit. That's why I very much believe in outsourcing to an expert about what is deductible, for example, what is taxable income, all those sorts of things. But I just thought it was worth exploring. I'm particularly interested in the windfall situation. Now, I'm pretty confident that if you win lotto or win a prize, scratchy, those sorts of things, then that's not taxable income. I'm not sure, though, what the position is when you consider all of these reality TV shows where people go on, and I'm assuming that it's not taxable when they win prize money, or in the case of Dee and Dazza from the block, $1 million. I wonder if that is tax deductible. What are the rules? What are the processes where it's ascertained? Craig Faulkner is a friend of the program, director of Faulkner & Co, Chartered Accountants, and joins us. G'day, Craig.
Oh, good afternoon, Peter. How are you?
Really well. Thanks for coming on the program at short notice. And I just want to stress to everyone that what we're about to talk about is very general in nature. And if anyone's got a more pressing concern, that they should seek their own independent financial advice. So get that out of the way first of all, Craig.
Thank you, Peter.
Here's the really nice, easy one for you. The lotteries, for example, here in Australia, we don't have to pay tax on that if we're lucky enough to win, do we?
Oh, look, again, as a general rule, no. Someone that's participating passively in a weekly lotto syndicate or weekly lotto subscription wins, whatever it is, $10 or $1 million. Generally, no.
It is in other countries, though. I'm sure you've across what the lotto rules are. That's my understanding. Have you heard similar?
Oh, look, you're right. I'm not an expert in foreign tax on lotteries, but I do believe that there are some jurisdictions, possibly even I think the US, that tax lotto recipients on their windfalls. We typically don't, and I use the word typically, and probably highlight that word.
Well, let's talk about then reality TV shows. And look, I'm sure that contestants will get their own advice, and probably the TV stations would let them make sure that they get their own advice as well. Is there a possibility, say, in one of these renovation programs where you do win a considerable amount of money, or not win, come away with a lot of money, that there is a possibility that tax should be paid on it?
Oh, look, I believe so, Peter, and it comes back to, the types of things that you're doing to derive that, in inverted commas, windfall.
Yeah.
And if you talk the reality TV type of things, believe it or not, there's literature that the ATO have published going right back as far as 1967 on recipients on TV and radio on these types of windfall gains. Now, I don't know about you, but I remember TVs back in the 1970s took up a fair amount of room in my family room, but the literature dates that far back.
Okay, so particularly, look, and I don't want to, I'm sure, again, I'll just stress, I'm sure they're getting their own financial advice, but Dee and Daz from the block, $1 million is $1 million, and it's not like it's the first time they've been on a program, for example, so I'm assuming that would be taken into account, and also the fact that I think Daz is a registered builder, so it's not like he's just had a go at something that he's not skilled for.
Oh, look, it sounds like you're well versed on the literature yourself, Peter. You picked up on two very, very important hallmarks here that distinguishes something from being a passive and therefore non-taxable type of windfall versus something that would attract tax, in my opinion. And it's the two things that you've highlighted. One is, what's his regular occupation? And being a builder and doing things in and around the building sort of trade and producing an income out of it is likely to see him being taxable on it. And the second thing that you pick up on, quite rightly, is the amount of times that he's appeared to, and I use the word earn, this windfall. That's quite significant.
For similar reasons, and I haven't got examples of actual individuals, but I'm sure that there's a few out there that have had a great run through the various sort of quiz shows, whether it is Sale of the Century or Millionaire Hot Seat or whatever. I'm sure there's been some who have cross-pollinated almost and been on one program and been successful and been on another. And I assume that the more times you're on these types of programs, the easier it is to ascertain and prove, well, you're actually more of a professional than an amateur.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I mean, the serial contestant, the serial and sophisticated lottery player even could come into that realm. But you're right. I mean, the more someone participates, the more they use this as an occupation as opposed to just a one-off, the more likely it is that the tax office is going to suggest that that's income-producing activity or income-producing effort.
What about in the workforce, Craig? If the boss says to me, "Oh, Pete, you've done a great job. We're not going to give you a sort of cash reward. We're going to give you a restaurant voucher, or we're going to give you a weekend away with your family." Should these things be declared to the ATO?
You're probably heading into a raft of legislation that exists called fringe benefits tax. So if it's your employer that provides you an in-kind type of reward, then that's likely to be taxable as a fringe benefits tax impost to the employer. But there is tax implications for those types of rewards.
Craig, Phil's SMS the program, and again, just want to stress, Phil, seek your own advice for all these sorts of things. Craig doesn't know the full circumstances, so this is not an advice. But Phil just asked, he got a payout from a medical procedure. Should that be disclosed, do you think, Craig?
Oh, look, it's unlikely, but that's a very broad brush response to something that I don't understand the full circumstances. Quite different to recently, Qantas insurance proceeds paid to a Qantas pilot that lost the ability to fly aircraft was held to be taxable by the ATO. But they're quite different set of circumstances. Typically, if you receive compensation for an injury, unlikely that it's taxable.
As society sort of changes and evolves, Craig, I'm fascinated as to new areas of incomes that people are discovering. And I know we've had you on the program before, and we've spoken about people who are prolific on Gumtree and eBay and those sorts of things.
Airbnb, exactly.
Airbnb, for example. I don't know if you saw it, but there was a case recently where Chris Judd, the footballer, was filmed by a bystander in an altercation, which was kind of big news. But the person who filmed the footage ended up being paid a considerable sum of money, and I'm just wondering, in that sort of situation, should that be something? If, for example, you sell something to a media outlet, should you declare that sort of thing as well?
Look, I am aware of the Chris Judd episode, but I think the principles here are essentially, for instance, if I film my dog running into a tree and some TV program picks it up and pays me for it, that's just likely to be a windfall.
Yeah.
If, however, I'm the avid storm chaser that's trying to get to the eye of the storm and have my video photographer and camera crew and all of that at the ready, then it's likely to be, income-producing, taxable income sort of realm. I'm sort of talking at the extremes, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of grey in the middle.
I guess I'm thinking that the advice may be, if you're in doubt, then talk about it with a professional advisor and disclose it, and I guess the ATO themselves can make the ultimate decision.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, the literature on the ATO website is generally quite helpful, but you're right. I mean, if in doubt, take some advice, form your opinion or position with a professional, or alternatively have a private ruling application where the tax office determines it for you.
Okay, what's the process for a private ruling, Craig, and when is it worthwhile?
Private rulings are generally worthwhile to give you comfort on knowing the ATO's view on something, and you're entitled to rely on that position even if it's favourable to you, or particularly if it's favourable to you. Obviously, it's nice to have that comfort blanket. The application process itself is essentially setting out to the Commissioner the sets of circumstances that you want him to consider and the areas of relevant law and precedents that you want him to take into account.
And more broadly, Craig, when you have new clients come to you and or more generally in the population, do you think that most people are aware of all the sorts of deductions that can be claimed in their particular professions, or are you thinking that a lot of people aren't aware and are missing out?
Oh, look, Peter, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of unknowns in the income tax legislation, and that's at the independent taxpayer level, that's at the ATO level, that's at the tax practitioner level. There's a lot of grey and there's a lot of things that set circumstances apart. So certainly interpretation and experience is fundamental to making sure that you understand what your rights and obligations are.
Craig, lovely to talk to you, and thanks for coming on the program again at short notice.
No problem, Peter. Good to talk again.
There's Craig Faulkner, Director of Faulkner & Co. Chartered Accountants.